Quarry-jammed James. Written by Butterfly Coffee. Read and adapted for audio by TARDIS9. Mavis and Toby have worked together at the quarry for many years. Mavis loads and shunts the stone into place for Toby to take away. She will sometimes help when things get busy. Toby is thankful for this. "It saves the wear on my wheels," he says. One day, Mavis's crew tried to start her, but she wouldn't go. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't feel well at all." A fitter came to inspect her. "Your engine won't turn over," he said. "You shall have to go to Crovan's Gate for repairs." Toby felt sorry for Mavis, but he was grumpy too. "Now I shall have to cope with this large stone order all on my own," he complained. "No, you won't," replied his driver. "I overheard the foreman on the telephone. Another engine shall be coming soon." Toby felt relieved. By midday, Toby wasn't feeling relieved anymore. "Now bother all this muck. I shouldn't have to be doing this. It'll ruin my paint." "James!" The two engines looked at each other in surprise. "I hadn't expected the Fat Controller to send you," said Toby. "Trust me, I don't want to be here either," grumbled James. "But as the only engine who could be spared, or so the Fat Controller says." "Well," replied Toby, "I'll be glad for your strength, but I hope you listen. Mavis and I have been running this quarry together for a long time, and I like things to be where I want them. The stone order will be delivered much faster if we work together." James wasn't so sure. He didn't like being bossed about by smaller engines. Toby and James got to work quickly. The tram engine told James how he liked everything to be and how he wanted it done. The more Toby talked, the more irritated James became. He was soon not paying attention. On the far side of the quarry was an old siding. It had once kept empty trucks, but the track had grown rickety over the years and it was too costly to repair. Toby and Mavis only used this siding when necessary, and otherwise left it alone. James didn't know the siding was coming up until he heard Toby call out, "James, be careful!" James braked quickly, but he felt his tender wobble behind him and bump into the old buffers. "Are you all right?" asked Toby. "Yes," said James. "Stupid siding. It ought to be ripped up if it's so bumpy." "Yes, I know. Mavis will only use it if she has to," replied Toby. "That's how we do things here. Now, were you listening? You have to have 3 trucks at once. They can be very troublesome. Any more, and you'll struggle to stop safely." James groaned to himself. "Oh, he's going to drive me mad if he carries on. I can't wait to be out of here." James already didn't like working with trucks, but he hated it even more in the quarry. Stone dust flew everywhere and it made it difficult to see. He complained bitterly about it. "Ugh, stupid stone, horrible dust. I'd much rather pull coaches." James's size also made shunting awkward. He had to move slowly to not cause an accident. This made the work even more tedious. James soon began to feel cramped. Come on, fussed Toby. "Please try to work a little faster, James. I'm going to run late." "Why can't you shun instead then?" puffed James. "Or better still, you stay here and I'll deliver the stone. That would make much more sense." "You are right, but you have no cow catchers or side plates, so you won't be allowed on the roads. Now shunt those trucks over there. This siding has to be clear for the next train." "But I haven't finished this one yet." "Then hurry it up." James ran back and forth all afternoon. He tried to keep up, but he soon became overwhelmed. It seemed that the trucks were wanted faster than he could fetch them. Toby's hounding didn't make things any better. By the end of the day, the red engine felt dizzy and tired. The next morning, James didn't want to go back to work. "Oh, please," he said miserably. "I want to go back to the main line. I can't stand it here." The driver tried to coax him. "If we crack on, we'll be out of here faster than you know it." James hoped he was right and moved off. What he couldn't have known was that his driver's words would end up becoming very literal indeed. "There you are, James, at last," grumbled Toby. "I could have used your help 20 minutes ago. I need 3 trucks here, 4 over there, and 5 over there," he said, looking over to 3 sidings. Half shunted and loaded trucks stood in each one of them. "I have to leave now. The trucks are being stubborn, so be careful and do not dawdle." "Do not dawdle, do not dawdle," muttered James as he loaded 3 trucks with stone. "How can I not dawdle when I have to move slowly? That makes no sense. Moving slowly means I'm dawdling, but I have to move slowly so I don't hit anything." James bumped the 3 trucks onto one train and went about fetching more. "And why shunt with a tender engine anyway? I can't see what I'm doing in this tiny little quarry. My shiny red paint is filthy, and I feel all squashed and stiff." James grumpily shunted the next 4 trucks under the hopper. He had forgotten all about Toby's warning of taking 3 trucks at a time. They were quite easy to get moving, but very difficult to stop. Toby and Mavis were very experienced handling them, but I'm sorry to say that James was not. The trucks had heard James complaining and decided to tease him. Poor James, Toby thinks that he's to blame." "Shut up," snapped James. "Come on." He banged the trucks about and went to fetch the last lot. "I know exactly what I'm doing." But he didn't know what he was doing. As James moved off from the hopper, the weight of the trucks took him by surprise. The shunter couldn't change the points in time. James was headed straight for a rickety old siding with unsafe buffers. "Look out!" cried the workmen, but it was too late. First came his tender, then his driving wheels, and something broke with a crack. "Ouch!" cried James. His crew jumped down to inspect their engine. The problem was serious. "Oh, that's torn it. You've snapped your rear driving axle. And what a time to have done it too. Oh, now Toby really will have to manage on his own." "We'll fetch the breakdown gang," said the workmen. James sat where he was, looking very worried. "Oh dear, what will Toby say?" he thought. He soon found out. "I warned you, James," fumed Toby. "I told you to only take 3 trucks at a time, and I told you to keep clear of that siding. It was your own fault for not listening. I suppose the only good thing about your mishap is that siding will be ripped up now. Good riddance." James felt hurt at Toby saying it was his fault, but he didn't say anything as he was taken away to be mended. At Croven's gate, Mavis felt much better. She'd just finished having her engine tested when she heard an engine being lifted onto the hoists. She looked up and was surprised to see James hovering above her. He was covered in quarry dust and looked very miserable. "James," said Mavis, "I didn't know you'd been sent to help in my place." "Oh, hello, Mavis," replied James glumly. "What's the matter?" James told Mavis about how bossy Toby had been, how he'd found it difficult to work in the quarry, and about his accident. Mavis listened quietly, and when James was finished, she sympathised with him. "Toby shouldn't have been so cross with you. I know he wanted the stone delivered, but no other engine can run the quarry quite how he likes it. But you should have been more understanding. I think you did your best, James. I'm sorry about your axle." James felt a little better. "I go back to the quarry tomorrow," Mavis continued. "I'll talk to Toby about what's happened and see if I can have him apologise when he next sees you. Oh, you shouldn't have been shouted at like that." "Thank you, Mavis," James mumbled. And please try not to break down again. I don't want to see another quarry for a while. Mavis laughed. I'll do my best, she said kindly. Good night, James. I hope your repairs go well. Mavis smiled. I hope so too. Good night, Mavis, and thank you again. The red engine now felt much better. He still had to have his broken axle mended, and that would take some time, but he knew he wouldn't be cooped up in a quarry again. And that was a very good feeling indeed. Dirty Objects. Written by the Reverend Wilbert Audrey. Read and adapted for audio by TARDIS 9. Toby and Henrietta take the workmen to the quarry every morning. At the junction, they often meet James. Toby and Henrietta were shabby when they first came and needed new paint. James was very rude. Ugh! What dirty objects, he would say. At last, Toby lost patience. James, he asked, why are you red? I am a splendid engine, answered James loftily. Ready for anything. You'll never see my paint dirty. Oh, said Toby innocently. That's why you once needed bootlaces, to be ready, I suppose. James went redder than ever and snorted off. At the end of the line, James left his coaches and got ready for his next train. It was a slow goods, stopping at every station to pick up and set down trucks. James hated slow goods trains. Dirty trucks and dirty sidings. Ugh! He grumbled. Starting with only a few, he picked up more and more trucks at each station, till he had a long train. At first, the trucks behaved well, but James bumped them so crossly that they determined to pay him out. Presently, rumbling over the viaduct, they approached the top of Gordon's Hill. Heavy goods trains halt here to pin down their brakes. James had had an accident with trucks before, and should have remembered this. Wait, James, wait, said his driver, but James wouldn't wait. He was too busy thinking about what he'd say to Toby when they next met. Too late, he saw where he was, and tried to stop. Hurrah! Hurrah! Laughed the trucks, and banging their buffers, they pushed him down the hill. The guard tightened his brakes until they screamed. On, yelled the trucks. I've got to stop, I've got to stop, groaned James, and setting his brakes, he managed to check the truck's mad rush, but they were still going much too fast to stop in time. Through the station they thundered and lurched into the yard. James shut his eyes. There was a bursting crash, and something sticky splashed all over him. He had run into 2 tar wagons, and was black from smokebox to cab. James was more dirty than hurt, but the tar wagons and some of the trucks were all to pieces. The breakdown train was in the yard, and they soon tidied up the mess. Toby and Percy were sent to help, and came as quickly as they could. Look here, Percy, exclaimed Toby. Oh, whatever is that dirty object? Well, that's James. Didn't you know? Well, it's James's shape, said Toby thoughtfully. But James is a splendid red engine, and you never see his paint dirty. Oh. James shut his eyes and pretended he hadn't heard. They cleared away the unhurt trucks and helped James home. The fat controller met them. "Well done, Percy and Toby," he said. He turned to James. Oh, fancy letting your trucks run away. I am surprised. You're not fit to be seen. You must be cleaned at once. Toby shall have a new coat of paint. Chocolate and blue, I think." "What, please, sir? Can Henrietta have one too?" "Certainly, Toby," he smiled. "She shall have brown, like Annie and Clarabelle." "Oh, thank you, sir. Oh, she will be pleased." Toby ran home happily to tell her the news.